everybody. I'm Jacqueline, the teen librarian here at JCPL, and I'm here with Charlie Raymond, the founder of the Kentucky Bigfoot Association. Charlie has been researching Bigfoots in Kentucky for over 3 decades and has interviewed over 300 credible eyewitnesses. As a passionate, diehard, boot-on-the-ground researcher, he leads numerous private and public expeditions, acquiring a wealth of knowledge and evidence in the process. Charlie has appeared on the Animal Planet, the History Channel, and the BBC. He speaks at libraries and at Bigfoot conferences throughout Kentucky and neighboring states. He has presented twice at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference and the Cryptic Con Kentucky alongside Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum, Bob Raymond, Cliff Backerman, and Bobo. Recently, he published his first book, Bluegrass Bigfoot, Encounters with the Kentucky Wildman. Welcome, Charlie. Thank you for being here.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm excited to talk about Bigfoot.
Yay, cool. So you have a presentation to show us today?
I sure do. And if anybody has questions during the presentation, they can type them in, I guess, the chat or the comments. And if you want, I can answer them during the presentation.
That would be great. I think they would love that.
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm gonna talk about our mission. We want to protect these magnificent creatures. We are a non-kill group. We believe Bigfoot to be a flesh and blood, yet to be classified hominin. There are other researchers out there that do believe Bigfoot may have paranormal or supernatural abilities, and I will discuss both sides of the coin during my presentation. Okay. My goal is to establish laws to protect these creatures, and that's a daunting task without a body. But we have gathered a wealth of evidence over the last few decades, and I will share some of the evidence during my presentation. If you have questions, please, like I said, type them in the comments and we will try to get to those. But basically, every county in Kentucky has had a sighting. I've got sightings that are not on my website. They're not made public because a lot of witnesses do not want they don't want their report public for fear of ridicule. So I do not publish them on my website, but there's a lot more than people realize. Kentucky is in the top 5 states with sightings. The BFRO is the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, BFRO.net, and that's the organization by Matt Moneymaker of Finding Bigfoot. It's a fantastic organization. I'm also a researcher for them as well, for Kentucky. So they have a lot of reports as well that it's not published online. And again, sometimes it's lack of researchers to follow up on reports. Sometimes it's fear of ridicule, but there's a lot more reports out there that go unnoticed. Here's a map of all the counties, and you can see the hot spots are in red. Anderson County leads the state, followed by Bullitt County and Ohio County. So your typical Bigfoot, right? It's about 8 foot tall. Reddish brown is the predominant color. We do have reports of black, gray, and white. We think the gray ones are just older Sasquatch that are seen quite often in the same counties. I get the question a lot, do these things migrate? No, I don't think they do. I get the same description, the same physical characteristics, the same behaviors observed by many over decades. So I do believe that these creatures stay put. They go within maybe 1 or 2 counties, as long as they have habitat, food, and humans don't encroach on their habitat, they stay put. I do believe they may go extinct within the next 100 years in Kentucky, because as you know, in Kentucky, we have huge pockets of forest, but those pockets of forest are surrounded by neighborhoods and shopping centers and interstates. And so it's really hard for them to move to reproduce. So hopefully if we establish laws to protect them, we can protect their land. That's the key. They do a great job avoiding us. You know, they're super intelligent. They're the ninjas of the forest. They've adapted over thousands of years to avoid us. So it's not so much them we have to protect, it's their land we have to protect. So that's one of our goals. A lot of the close encounters, the witnesses describe a wide hooded nose, like a human, not like a gorilla. Again, I mention this a lot. If these things were gorillas, we would have one in a zoo by now. These things are not gorillas. I believe them to be a relic hominid, very closely related to us. Most of my reports are not harmful. They're curious. They will come close and they usually leave. Like we were mentioned, what was mentioned earlier, I have over 300 reports I've documented where I meet the witness in person or over the phone. And every close encounter, the Bigfoot avoids us. It does not, or avoid us. It doesn't really want to hurt us. That's what I meant to say. It's just curious. A lot of the reports describe it walking with a gliding motion, like it's on skates, meaning it does not bob up and down. The head is nice and smooth as it runs, and that's due to the metatarsal break in the arch of the foot, which bends. They have a flexible foot at their arch. Ours does not. Again, they have adapted over thousands of years to navigate the hilly terrain in Kentucky and elsewhere. We use shoes, and our feet are getting worse because we use shoes as a crutch. So they've really adapted to their environment, and we have not. So we go out in the woods, we do research. We're not going to sneak up on them. You can't go out there with camo and guns and flashlights or anything like that. The best way to have an interaction is to go out there and act normal, laugh, play music, cook food. That's when they come close. And that's when I have found I've had great interactions with these things. And I will talk about some of the techniques later in this presentation. A lot of the witnesses describe the Sasquatch turning at the waist, like Patty in the Patterson-Gimlin footage. And that's because the huge trapezius muscles, they have a hard time turning their neck like we do. You've probably heard of Dr. Jane Goodall. You can Google her and Bigfoot, and you can listen to her describe her beliefs regarding Sasquatch. And she does believe that Bigfoot could be in existence in the United States, in North America. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, he's a professor at Idaho State University, PhD in anthropology. He studies Bigfoot. He studies their casts. Dr. Meldrum has the largest collection of casts in the world. A huge portion of his casts are from Kentucky. Let me rephrase that. One of his samples from one individual, Tom Shea, has the largest collection from Trimble County, Kentucky, in Dr. Meldrum's collection. And I will talk more on that during my presentation. 10 years ago, a lot of scientists would not come forward for fear of ridicule and possibly losing their job, losing their credibility. Now it's more accepted. There's a lot more scientists on board based on the latest evidence. To date, the Patterson-Gimlin footage is the best footage of a Sasquatch. There's never been a suit produced. Back in '67, they did not have four-way stretch material that would move over a muscle suit, because in the video, you can see the muscles contract. On Patty's thigh, she has a hematoma. When she takes a step, it's a bulge that bulges out on her thigh. That's kind of hard to fake through a bulky costume. The ratio of her upper leg to lower leg is nowhere near the ratio of a human leg. And that's significant. because for a person to be in that suit, they could not bend their knee where she bends her knee. She's also a female based on her anatomy, and we have lots of tracks casted from Patty. Here's a short clip of Patty, and you could Google this and you'll find many versions of this. M.K. Davis broke this down and took still shots of it. Many anthropologists believe this to be a living, breathing organism. See, she twists her entire body to look at the camera because she heard Bob. Bob was on the horse. Roger ran down. He got off the horse, and Roger ran to some down trees and took his camera and stabilized himself. And that's when Patty twisted at the hips to look at Roger. So here's some replicas of Sasquatch. That's Mr. Munn's Hollywood Special Effects. He made a replica of Gigantopithecus. We know Gigantopithecus lived on this earth about 100,000 years ago in Asia. We have some fossils of Giganto. Based on the way the skull's set on the spine, we believe to be upright and bipedal. On the other side of the screen is Dr. Meldrum. They made a 3D replica of a Sasquatch skeleton. It's 8.5 feet tall. If that skeleton was real, a living, breathing creature with flesh and blood and muscle, it would weigh close to 1,000 pounds. So Bigfoots eat a lot, mainly deer in Kentucky, but they're omnivores, meaning they'll eat anything. We have a lot of crops, soybean, corn. We have blackberries and other fruits and vegetables in Kentucky, but deer is their primary food source. Their main goal, number one, is to avoid us. Secondly, look for food, and also eventually try to reproduce. So the question is, where are the fossils? Where are the bones? A lot of people don't realize the first chimp fossils were found in 2005. And that's because where chimps and gorillas die, the ground is not very conducive to preserving fossils. So the fossil record is very sparse. Bigfoot, likewise. When Bigfoot dies, same environment, basically. And Bigfoots are more rare than chimps and gorillas. We do have records of giant human-like skeletons. If you Google these giant human-like skeletons in Kentucky, you will find newspaper articles of these giants. Some of them 9 foot tall, double rows of teeth, skulls 3-4 times of a human skull. Now, where these skeletons ended up, we don't know. But there are documents in the newspapers of these skeletons. A lot of people claim there's a conspiracy and cover-up. I don't know about that, but we just seem to have lost these skeletons somewhere. Cliff Barackman of Finding Bigfoot, and he's got a great podcast too, Cliff and Bobo. I encourage you to check it out. It's Bigfoot and Beyond. But Cliff mentioned about sick apex predators. And what would a sick apex predator do? And typically, to avoid us and other animals, it would go hide, right? It would go off deep in the woods somewhere. Well, in a sense, if it died, it would be hiding its bones. In Kentucky, we have some steep hills and deep hollers and a lot of places where hunters and hikers don't want to go. Well, they can get across that terrain very easily. So they get to the remote areas, they might pass away, and it only takes a month for every piece of their bone to vanish. And the reason I say that, Monster Quest did a time lapse of a deer carcass. So they strapped the deer carcass down, they put a camera on it, and in 1 month, every piece of that deer was devoured by porcupine and other animals. Fact is, if you Google a deer eating a bone, you could see on someone's game camera a video of a deer eating another deer's bone. So bones don't last long in the woods. In West Virginia, they did a study on hunters. 90% of hunters never leave a game trail or go more than a quarter mile from a trail. Same thing here in Kentucky. You know, when you go to these state parks and national parks, a lot of hikers, we stay on trails. We don't go off trail. Well, Bigfoot's not going to conveniently die on the trail. You know, they go just a remote area again and possibly even bury their dead. A lot of people speculate they could bury their dead because we find huge burial mounds of rocks, and they could be Native American, but we don't dig them up out of respect. But they could also be Sasquatch. We don't know. I have a good friend who's a doctor in Tennessee. He's also a Bigfoot researcher. He asked one of his friends who's former government, do you guys know? And he said, yes, we classify them as species 5. I wonder what species 1 through 4 are. Now that's hearsay, you know, that's from a third party, and we don't know if that's true or not, but that's just something that has gone around, and we have to do the research. I encourage everybody to go out there, do your research, read books, get online, double check your sources, get out in the woods with friends, and try to document what you find. It's a lot of fun too, you know, going hiking and camping. It's a good way to relieve stress and have a great time. Now I mentioned before Gigantopithecus fossils. We do have those, and a lot of academics believe that Bigfoot could be a descendant of Giganto. I don't think it is. I think it's a totally different hominid that's been living side by side with us. So here's some skulls of many hominid fossils. These are replicas of them. Again, the ones I think are Sasquatch are the ones with hooded noses, like humans. At least every close encounter I've documented, the witness said it had a wide hooded nose. Okay, so we know, every year we have thousands of new species, right? And you think microorganisms, but no, they're mammals. The giant tortoise just a few years ago in the Galapagos. The giant tortoise is a big, slow, not too bright creature, and we just discovered this species. Bigfoot, unlike that giant tortoise, is highly intelligent, very elusive. Its senses are far superior than our senses. So it stands to reason that's why we can't catch a Bigfoot. They're hard to catch. There was a new monkey species in Malaysia just a couple of years ago, maybe I think 3 years ago, a brand new monkey species. So there's a lot of mammals that we discovered. And then another hominid, of course, in Africa, South Africa, just a couple of years ago. But this was a nice discovery in the Philippines. Another hominid. What makes this interesting is in the last 50,000 years on this planet, that makes 7 different hominids living on this planet in the last 50,000 years. That's not very long. And we believe Bigfoot to be one of these hominids, maybe number 8, that has not gone extinct. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about blood, flesh and blood and supernatural. There are 2 camps in the Bigfoot research world. There's the ones that believe it could be paranormal or supernatural, meaning it could cloak, it could vanish in front of your eyes, it could go through a portal, it could use mind speak. The other camp, which is what I'm in, believes it's a flesh and blood creature that has adapted over thousands of years, and I'll explain some of this in a second. So adaptation, we know that animals will adapt to their environments over thousands of years. We think Bigfoot has very keen senses. The sense of smell, eyesight, hearing, even maybe their 6th sense, because their existence is to survive and avoid contact with us. We use technology as a crutch. So our senses are getting worse. We need eyeglasses and hearing aids and so forth. So when we go in the woods, we're at a huge disadvantage. Okay, where are the photos, right? We have probably hundreds and thousands of game cameras out there. I will tell you this, we do have photos. I have photos I cannot show in this presentation because the witness or the hunter does not want to be ridiculed. They don't want trespassers on their property. So I cannot show you these amazing photos I've seen. Now, during my presentations in person, I do have permission to show some of them as long as nobody takes a picture of them. Another reason they avoid cameras, though, is basically the IR vision, the infrared vision light that comes out of them. We believe they can see the IR. They can actually see the camera. I've got pictures of deer looking right in my game cameras. So deer know they're there. And again, they might be able to hear it and smell it and sense the EMF, which is electromagnetic field that these cameras give off. We know animals can sense that EMF field. So here's a couple new encounters. This one was just last year in Mercer County. The lady called me and said it was late in the evening, and I took my little dog out front to go to the bathroom. And the strangest thing, my dog sat right by my leg and would not move and did not make a sound. And she said to me, now everybody knows my dog is a biting dog. And when you come to my house, I'll show you he's a biting dog. He likes to bark. Well, this evening, he did not bark. He did not move. He sat right by my leg. And this creature jumped up on this embankment, which there's a picture of me there standing where it stood there on the left. The picture on the right is an artist's rendition of what she saw. It had very long arms, long shaggy hair, stood upright, and then when she made eye contact, it ran off. And that was only about 100 feet away from her. It was at night, but she had a porch light and her neighbor had a porch light too. So it was lit up fairly well. This one was taken land between the lakes. Mike was with his family, daytime sighting. They had pulled their boat over to cook some hot dogs in a little grill. It's a very remote area. There's no trails, there's no parking lots, dense forest. And Mike was cooking hot dogs with his son and his wife and his daughter. And he heard some people up on the ridge, but there's no trails up there. So Mike was concerned. He told his wife, he said, baby, look, keep an eye up there because I hear something up there. So the wife kept looking up there, and pretty soon they heard a loud tree knock. And Mike's son goes, oh my gosh, I think Bigfoots do that. And his son's eyes got real big. So Mike reached over and grabbed a stick and he hit a tree with the stick. And right after he did that, from his left down the embankment was another knock, clear as day. And the family became really concerned. They said, we need to leave. And they got the barbecue grill out of there. They loaded up the boat. But Mike wanted to see it. So he started coasting down the shoreline, and he looked up, and in an opening, he sees this creature right here on your screen. Now, Mike drew this, and he used his daughter's crayons to color it for us. It was reddish brown. It was standing by a tree, massive. We did a full investigation. My friend Brent Sipley, he went up there, and he's like 6'4", and he said this creature dwarfed him, much larger than Brent being 6'4", and it took off fast. He goes, Charlie, I know why people don't get photos. When I saw this thing, by the time I went to reach for my cell phone, it was gone in a flash. Sandy Hook, Kentucky, this gentleman was driving early morning. He sees one by the road. And I might even have the reenactment here. This is a reenactment. I'm with him in his truck. This is the exact location. Actually, I'm not with him. I'm standing in the grass. Sorry, my memory is terrible. I'm actually in the grass here. Watch. You're going to see me standing there. You can barely see me right here. He said, as he drove by, it ducked down in the grass. Looks like there's an orb. That's a reflection of this. It's not an orb. He said he thought it was only 6 foot tall. When I got there, that grass was up to my chest. I'm 5'11". He goes, man, that thing was over a foot taller than you. So here's some impressions we found right where he thinks the creature stood, which was nice to find those impressions. I pulled back the grass to maybe cast them, but it was too dense and we could not pull tracks from this. Now, unbeknownst to this witness, the BFRO, Jack Smar, he documented a report 2 years prior, less than a mile away, or just about a mile away as the crow flies, on the same stretch of road near Sandy Hook, Kentucky. There was a road crossing as well. And he did not report this to the BFRO. Again, he did not know about that organization, but I love that. Us collaborating, we're able to document these reports and maybe figure out where these creatures live. This is an example of a Sasquatch not hurting a person. This witness listened to a radio broadcast of Don Neal, the Reverend Don Neal. He's a researcher for our organization. He preaches the gospel by day and he squatches by night. Don and his good friend Don Atkins went on this little radio show in Logan County, and they were talking about Bigfoot. And they encouraged anybody to come forward with a sighting. Well, James heard that radio broadcast because he didn't have the internet. He listens to the old transistor radios, and he called my number. And he told me, late one afternoon, I was tending my garden. I grow strawberries, and it was dusk. And I looked over the fence, and by the tree line was this massive creature. He goes, but I wasn't afraid. I go, you can come closer. I won't hurt you. So he said it again. It's okay. You can come closer. I won't hurt you. He might have said it 3 times. And then he realized he was holding a rake in his hand. He thought maybe the rake is scaring it. So he laid his rake down. And that creature stepped over a 4-foot fence and walked up to him. This is an artist's rendition of what he saw. It was gray, very long arms, muscular, wide hooded nose. The bangs look cut, which is odd, that he claimed the bangs were cut. And they stood eye to eye, basically. Not really, but it was about 9 foot tall, he thinks the creature was. And pretty soon he became nervous, and the man walked back in his house, and he looked back, and the creature was walking away. So James goes in the house, and he takes 2 potatoes from his garden, and he opens his back door, and he sets the potatoes on his deck railing. Well, before he went to bed, he looked outside, and those potatoes were gone. So, did this creature come back, and did it take the potatoes? We don't know, but this is a perfect example of the creature being curious, not wanting to hurt us. Now, I'm not going to say all Bigfoots are like this. They're like people. They're individuals. They have different personalities, different temperaments. So you do want to remain cautious, and that's another reason why you always hike with a friend or multiple friends when you go hiking and camping. But generally speaking, if we leave them alone, they will leave us alone. We're just curious like them. So here's a question. Who knows what the Bigfoot is called in Florida? If you said the skunk ape, you're correct. Okay, a little tougher one. Do you know the Bigfoot in Ohio? If you said the grass man, you are correct. When I started doing research, I learned really quick that every county has its own name for Bigfoot. We never got the memo on what to call these things. I started documenting them, and these are some of the names that people have come up with. Pretty creative. And there's more. So this one I love to talk about because in the 60s, Mr. Tyndall claimed to have seen this big hairy creature walk out of the forest and raise its hand and then turn and retreat into the tree line. Others have seen it as well throughout that decade. In 2011, 2 teenagers who moved to Kentucky from Florida did not know about Howdy. That's his nickname, Howdy. They did not know about Bigfoot in Kentucky. And they said this creature walked out of the forest and raised its hand. Did they see Howdy? Did they see that same creature? Probably. Same county, same behavior. You might have heard Daniel Boone killing a 10-foot tall hairy man. Well, in Kentucky, we have the Daniel Boone National Forest. In that forest, we have Yahoo Falls, because Daniel Boone called it a Yahoo that he killed. In Washington County, Kentucky, the Turtle Man told me about a giant human-like skeleton in his neighbor's cave that he won't show anybody. You cannot go on his property. He's very protective of his land, but he has seen it, and a few other people have seen this giant human-like skeleton. On the outside of the cave is inscribed DB. Was that Daniel Boone? We don't know. In Warren County, Kentucky, there's an old map someone gave me, and on that map it says giant skeletons. And this is the map they gave me. It shows the early pioneers in the 1700s who come to Kentucky. And it's labeled on there the different names of the settlers who came to Kentucky. But what I found interesting is up here between the creeks, these giant skeletons. And then I looked up here and it mentions Daniel Boone shot a bear. There's a cave. Okay, could have been a bear, right? But I pulled up Google Earth and I did find, and if you turn it sideways, these creeks are there. Drake's Creek splits to Trimble Creek, just like that map, identical. So one afternoon, parked my car, hiked up here. That cave is there. It goes down about 30 yards down, and you couldn't go any further, but the cave is there. So the map is pretty accurate. So were those giant skeletons? Was that accurate? We don't know. So some local encounters. This actually is one I wanted to bring up. I talked about it at my last library presentation. So here we go. There's a lot of controversy over this. And I'm just going to tell you what I know, and that's all we can do right now. So there's a 5-year study of 3 Sasquatch in Grant County. An older lady and her husband were throwing out food, like a lot of people do, their scraps, from dinner in their backyard. And these Bigfoots would come up and eat the food. They loved pancakes with maple syrup, was their favorite food. And she would sing to them. When she put the food out, she always had this little song she would sing. Matt Moneymaker took a video of one of them walking up. Since then, Erickson, he purchased the rights to it, and he also purchased the property. And he moved the elderly couple down the street. He brought in researchers. He brought in scientists with PhD, Layla, has a PhD in evolutionary biology. Layla was there, and other scientists were there for 5 years almost, studying these creatures. They got video, they got DNA. And I don't want to go too much into it all, but basically, here's what happened. The video came back, and they said it looked like a Chewbacca mask. And I'm going to show you part of the video, and you could Google it yourself. But from what I heard through a reliable source, that George Lucas did not make Chewbacca in the likeness of a Bigfoot. Or actually, he did. Sorry, I got it backwards. George Lucas did make Chewbacca in the likeness of a Bigfoot, because the early sketches of Chewbacca was of a lizard man, not of a hairy Bigfoot-looking creature. But Bigfoot was hot back then. It was all over the news. So George actually redesigned it to look like Chewie, like you know now in Star Wars. So he made Chewbacca to look like a Bigfoot. And that's why the Bigfoot in this creature looks like Chewbacca. It's not that they had a Chewbacca mask. It's the other way around. That's my belief. There's also video of it sleeping, and it takes 6 breaths per minute. That's a low respiration rate, 6 breaths per minute. They got film of this thing. So here's what happens, okay? They get all this evidence, lawyers get involved, it all falls through. We were supposed to have this big documentary, and a lot of the lawyers and stuff fell through. The DNA fell through. And here's what happened. DNA was submitted. It came back human. And a lot of people said, oh, it's contaminated. I beg to differ. We have people there with PhDs like Layla who know how to collect these samples of DNA. They did it the right way with sterile gloves and containers, and they sent it off. And the reason I say that is I believe Bigfoot to be very closely related to us. Almost human. But a lot of academics don't believe that. It doesn't jive with their textbooks and their theories, and a lot of them throw it out. There's other examples of the DNA being collected, sent to other labs, very credible labs. Same thing happens. So the issue is now, it doesn't matter if we get video. It does not matter if we get DNA. It's not going to prove it. We need a body. I don't condone killing one. I don't want to kill one. But it's my belief that's the only way we could prove their existence. So here's a short clip of Matilda. She was the juvenile Sasquatch, the young female Sasquatch. A lot of the Bigfoots have that prognathism, the extended jaw. There are lots of reports I've taken from credible witnesses who claim canines, like you see with Matilda. So there's a lot of controversy again over that. Do your own research, Google it, find out about it. But it's a shame because I thought for sure this is the smoking gun. Okay, some vocals from Kentucky. So this was recorded in 2010 by some ghost hunters. This is the actual house that they were at. There's no windows and no doors. They were ghost hunting. So they had digital recorders trying to capture EVPs. They put a recorder by one of the windows. They went out front to smoke, which I find funny every time I say that, because why do you go out front to smoke when all the windows are busted out and the doors are gone? But anyway, they went out front here. They're standing out front where I'm at, this view right now, and they hear this creature come off the ridge behind this house. Luckily, they capture the audio of this creature. Now, the gentleman here in the quotes, he is a crypto-linguistic specialist for the Air Force. His main career, his main job is to decipher languages from other countries. He specializes in that. He's trained in that. He now analyzes Bigfoot vocals. His Bigfoot page is Sasquatch Bioacoustics. Go there, Google it, Sasquatch Bioacoustics. He takes all these supposed Bigfoot vocals and he breaks them down for us. So I encourage you to go there and check out his research. He thinks this is legit, and I'm going to play it for you. You will hear the people talking, but the main thing you're listening for is the change in pitch, how it changes pitch. So listen closely. It keeps going. You can go to my website. If you go to my website, KentuckyBigfoot.com, it's broken down. I mean, it goes on for a long time, and you can listen to the entire clip. Here's another investigation we did. We recorded these vocals. We heard tree knocks prior. We are remote. I mean, oh my gosh, we are miles from any house. It's late at night, and we heard these crazy howls followed by the coyotes. We do believe there's a relationship with the coyotes and the Sasquatch. They tend to follow each other. And why not, right? There's scraps. The Bigfoot makes a kill. There's plenty of scraps for the coyote. Or maybe the coyotes make a kill and the Bigfoot walks up and says, thank you, I'll take that. We don't know, but there seems to be a relationship in the vocals and sightings as well. But this is one crazy clip. It's real short of what we think could be a Sasquatch yell. I'll play it one more time, but it has this human-like tone to it. Can you imagine being in the woods at night and hearing that? Yeah, we were scared for sure. So in Trimble County, Tom Shea has casted many casts that Dr. Jeff Meldrum has in his collection. Here's two pictures of his casts that he has. I was with Tom on his property. This is in 2013. It was late in the day. It was a nice, cool, sunny day, and we were cooking bacon. Who doesn't love the smell of bacon, right? So we were actually burning it. And then we hear this rock come flying through the trees. Never did see it, but we heard it. And then it smacks a tree, and we're like, that sounded like a rock. Then I recorded these amazing whoops, which I'm about to play. Just so you know, I have a digital recorder with omnidirectional mics. So the omnidirectional mics record in any direction. And I had it away from us about 20 yards hanging in a tree. Perfect scenario to record these whoops. That's good. You can hear me say that's good. I was like, whoa. If you take those whoops, and they're on my website, Google it. There are no known animals in Kentucky that make those sounds. I tried it. There's nothing that comes close. Only thing I found that comes remotely close is a monkey and some zoo somewhere in a different state. I'll play it one more time for you. And if you go to my website, KentuckyBigfoot.com, and there's an audio section, there's a video section that also has vocals. It also has witness testimony. I encourage you to go there. So here's some thermal video. We think we got at some juvies, which are young Bigfoot belly crawling. Just so you know, Bigfoots will go down to all fours. Lots of reports of them going down to all fours. So they don't look as obvious, you know, they kind of blend in, they kind of hide. And we were on an expedition in Tennessee, top of this mountain, we jumped something big, we all turned, and my buddy had a thermal imager that recorded, and he videotaped what I'm about to show you. was about 30 yards away. There was a lot of brush between us. After it ran, it got real quiet. So what we think happened was the young Sasquatch, they don't know the protocol, right? Like an adult Sasquatch, they know, don't move, stay still. The humans will walk right by and never see us. The juvies panicked, we think, and they started to run and went down to their bellies. So take a look at this here. Oh, these are casts. We did make some nice casts, not from where it crawled, but same area the day before. We also heard nice tree knocks when we were there. So here's the video. And you got to rule out everything else. You know, is this a bear? Is it a deer? Is it a person even? We estimated only 6 foot tall. We did a full reenactment. You could go to the website and look at some of the videos of the reenactment. We think it's only 6 foot tall. But where we were, I mean, we were at the top of this mountain in Tennessee, very, very remote. There was only one road up there. We were the only ones there. Late at night, after midnight. We're pretty sure it was not a person up there. And you can watch the entire video on my website, but here's 2 frames of it. It at one point looks like the head pops out here, and you can see the legs and the hind end. On the next frame, another frame, not the next frame, but another frame. I like this one because on this one, I like the foot almost. Now there's trees and branches here, so it's kind of obscuring some of it. But go to my website and you can check out the entire video, see what you think. And there's my website. My book, like was mentioned earlier, is on Amazon for purchase. It's full of eyewitness testimony from Kentucky. I've got testimony in my book of law enforcement, of park rangers that are not on my website. They gave me permission to put their testimony in my book. And I got some of my own personal encounters, which are kind of funny, some of them. So it's a great read if you want to check that out. If anybody has any questions or comments, please post them in the comment section. I will try to answer them. Thank you, guys. And as Bobo says, keep it squatchy.
Thanks, Charlie. I haven't got any questions yet, but we can give them a few seconds to see if they can type some in. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we hope you'll come to the library another time.
Yeah, I would love to. And in person, I could bring a lot of the casts, and I can show pictures that I normally can't show on the internet because it's easy to take screenshots of them. So I can show you a lot of these game camera photos I have. It's a little bit more interactive, and I'll have new research too by then.
I have one question. Have you encountered or seen UFO phenomena around the Bigfoot sites or other cryptic activity sites?
So there's a lot of reports of this, and people do tend to claim that they're caused, one causes the other. And my research is in psychology, and I study statistics, and we have to be careful not to say that one event causes the other event, even though they happen in the same area, which they do. There's a lot of reports of UFOs and orbs where Bigfoot sightings occur. I've been there. It's happened to me. Now, it doesn't happen the same exact time. I don't see the Bigfoot beam up to the UFO or vice versa. I don't see the Bigfoot turn into an orb, but we do have claims of UFOs and orbs in the same locations. So in research, we use the term causation versus correlation. There's a correlation. So they both happen the same area, same times, roughly. That's a correlation. Causation is what we have to be careful of. Unless you see it, you can't say it. So it is interesting. It is a possibility. I'm not going to rule it out. But yeah, we do have some strange stuff happen in these locations. Any other questions?
Checking. Not seeing any. Oh, wait, no more questions right now. Well, like you said, they can comment again. Where can they make a comment if they want to on here? You'll be checking it for a little bit.
Yeah, I'll check the Facebook and your Facebook page, and when you post it or whatever, if you see any comments, let me know, and I'll go there when I'm done, and I'll try to answer everything I can.
Great. Well, thank you, Charlie. We really appreciate it. It was nice seeing you tonight, and I really enjoyed the presentation.
Well, good. Thank you. It was my pleasure, and get out there and get in the woods and have a good time.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.